like some of the other topics that I thought was going to be a nice, simple thing to do for a 2-hour webinar, and even maybe less than 2 hours, turned out to be just the opposite. Because as I was preparing for tonight and putting the PowerPoint together, I realized, dang it, this could be a part 1 and part 2. Hopefully it won't be, depending on comments and questions. But it is an important topic. It's when I was going through getting my naturopathic degree, the founding principles of health were, good sleep, good water, good foods, and good mental state of mind, the basics. And in Germany, especially Germany, but other parts of Europe too, basically all of Europe, there were nature cure centers. Germany was where they were most prevalent. And these were places that people, and sun, that was the other one, and sometimes water therapy, not just hydration. But the real cures of the 1800s, came from these nature cure centers where, people left their, I don't know how hectic life was in the 1800s, but I guess I can imagine, but they would go to these nature cure centers where they would sunbathe, nude, and drink water and get hydrotherapy and eat, raw, natural, locally grown foods, and, be able to rest and sleep in a very peaceful environment. And these people would heal from these chronic ailments. And so sleep is definitely a foundation of a lot of other things. And I think, as you might see tonight, a lot of people, are big on, the big things I always hear is that people are taking melatonin or some type of melatonin type product if they're not taking a drug to sleep. And there's so many more reasons why that's probably either not working or maybe worked for a little while and then stopped working, because sleep, has at least 20 big reasons why it may not be happening, underlying causes. And so tonight we're going to talk about the underlying causes of poor sleep, and on each topic we're going to talk about solutions. And so in a few of these topics where I've covered a subject previously this year in a 2-hour webinar, I might reference that webinar, like hormones is one reason people don't sleep, and then you can go back and listen to that 2-hour presentation if you missed it. And so I'm not going to go into great detail on subjects that I've already covered this year, but I will reference them as an underlying cause of not getting great sleep. So we'll go ahead and get started now. So the number one, not the number one like in priority, but just the first on my list of reasons people don't sleep are the adrenal glands. And the adrenals is our fight or flight. The adrenals is our stress coping. Adrenals actually get depleted just from poor sleep. So if someone for some reason has had a history of not going to bed at, by 11 p.m. or staying up all night or shift working or cramming for exams or whatever reason they weren't asleep by 11, that everything kicks in at 11 p.m. And so if they're up on their computer or they're up on doing stuff, and or the adrenals were compromised because of stressful situations or households or jobs or family, then adrenals definitely have a kickback mechanism that would definitely affect our sleep. And the adrenals affect so many things. But generally, when the adrenals are a factor, because the two main things is you're just very tired. It's like a tiredness that you just can't shake. Like it doesn't kind of come and go. It kind of maybe comes and go at first, and it kind of creeps up on you. And there's never not been a single chronic fatigue case that I've dealt with where adrenals were not involved. But this is the thing with adrenals, is when they're involved, people can sleep, like think they're sleeping 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 hours and still wake up tired. It's like either they're not really in complete REM sleep or they're just tired all the time. Like I know when I had chronic fatigue, I could be in bed 10, 11 hours and still be tired the rest of the next day, never really feeling like I had my snap, So that's another kind of symptom of adrenals, is you just don't feel like you have your snap, and that amount of snap you have, it kind of diminishes. So there's 3 categories of adrenal dysfunction. One is just low adrenal function. The low adrenal function is usually more of a chronic condition. It means that it's something someone's been dealing with for a long time, because before someone has chronically low adrenal function, they're usually in hyperadrenal function. I'll show you some charts of this in a minute, which will make more sense. But hyperadrenal function is that part of the adrenals that is hyped up for you to deal with a stressful situation like a job or a young child or a sick child or a death of a family member or something like that. But after days and months of years of hyperadrenal function, which is fight or flight, survival mechanism, then it turns into low adrenal function, and it's actually harder to resolve because then it's like just everything's gone, like there's just nothing left. Adrenals in Chinese medicine is our qi and our vitality. It's how we heal, it's how we function, it's our fertility, it's everything. So it's so important. And then there's adrenal dysregulation, which is basically just a screwed up adrenal map. And that one is definitely better showing you the picture next, because adrenal dysregulation means that your whole map of how your adrenal should be functioning is wrong. It's off. And that does take a little bit more work than just high or low adrenal function. If you've ever thought of being wired but tired, like busy brain but with physical fatigue, that's usually an adrenal issue. You can do testing of the adrenals by doing an adrenal stress index test. It's a hormone test that can map your adrenal function throughout the day. And some solutions for the adrenals are adrenal support before breakfast and lunch for low adrenals, or calming and nerving herbs before dinner and bed for the hyped up adrenals. And that combination is also necessary for adrenal dysregulation. So let me just show you this picture, and then I'll go back to that for a second. This would be a picture of adrenal dysregulation. And so this is a result of someone's hormone test, mapping their adrenals throughout the day. So it maps and checks your adrenal function 8 a.m., noon, 4 p.m., and midnight. So the green shaded area is what your adrenals should be doing. That's the range you want to see for proper adrenal function. And on this particular person, you can see that their morning adrenal is low. This means they're going to wake up tired and not really have that get up and go. Then you see at noon, they're still like borderline low. They're on the bottom fringe of what's considered acceptable. And then you see at 4 p.m. they spike, and this is that person who gets kind of that afternoon, like, maybe they just feel like they got going in the afternoon. And this happens a lot when people say, I can't think straight till later in the day. I get more done in the afternoon than I do at any other time of day. Or they say their brain just doesn't work in the morning. It's like brain fog. And then you see it tapers off and goes down to the normal range finally at midnight. There's another picture here, and this is also dysregulation. And this is the one that keeps people from falling asleep. So this one is totally out of the reference range, rock bottom in the morning at 8 a.m., borderline at noon and 4, so still probably tired and sluggish. And you see there that solid line at midnight is when their brain finally kicked in. That's when things are going, but that's when they should be sleeping. So this kind of what they call adrenal dysregulation is actually opposite of what they should have. They should be highest in the morning, lowest at bedtime. So this person would be a harder case to resolve than the last case, because this one, we have to definitely support morning and noon and do the calming thing in the afternoon, but this is still right here much worse, because this one has to be completely redone. Like, we have to do support throughout the day, AM, noon, 4 p.m., and midnight. So basically, if you have that second wind at night, that is almost always a sign of adrenal dysregulation without paying the $125 to get this chart done. That's how much this test costs, is $125. If you wake up very tired, hard to get going, hard to get out of bed, have that brain fog in the morning, and then really don't ever get your snap until the afternoon or night, then I could just tell you it's adrenal dysregulation, and from your symptoms. Also, if you wake up, completely not hungry, and you don't get hungry until noon or the afternoon, that's also a sign of adrenal stress or low adrenal function, or possibly adrenal dysregulation. But this has such an impact on the sleep, and I guess if we were to look at it just more like on this one, you can just kind of tell that if someone has a problem going to bed, and this happens with kids too, that just say they cannot go to sleep, they cannot fall asleep. And that's because if your adrenaline just got going between 4 p.m. and midnight, you're going to be wide awake. It'd be no different than if you had just taken a few cups of coffee or tea or tobacco or something, and you're just kind of wide awake. And this is the problem with falling asleep. But this creates a bad cycle over a long period of time, because then it never gets restored and the pattern just gets worse and worse. I've actually seen charts even worse than this, where 8 a.m. is 0, literally they're flatlined, and at midnight it spikes way up there, like at 25. And that's, the more severe or off this chart is from what the graph should be, is it takes a little bit more time to resolve, but it is resolvable. And so if any of this sounds like something that you might be dealing with, I just want to go back to the solutions one more time. It is supporting adrenals before breakfast and lunch through adrenal support, and that adrenal support can be, I think that's on the next slide. Yeah, adrenal glandulars, licorice root, ginseng, things like that. And then calming or nervine herbs before dinner and bed for hyperadrenals, such as kava kava, passion flower, chamomile, valerian root, lemon balm, or nervine tonic. And just so you know, I mean, you might be taking notes, but this is going to be recorded and uploaded to YouTube. And it's also possible for you to go back and play it and pause and write down or do anything that you want to do as far as taking notes. So this will be available to you after tonight, for the sake of if you want to see or have more time to write down the specific solutions. For the sake of time, I'm going to keep going. The next underlying cause that can affect sleep is low thyroid. And a lot of people don't realize this, but I've talked about low thyroid in detail in the hormone webinar that was done, I think, in February. And that and adrenals, I go into great detail with all the thyroid symptoms. But this is the deal with low thyroid, is if your oral temperature is low, like under 98.2, and if you're not sleeping, this is one of the first things I would try to tackle, because if someone is either undiagnosed low thyroid or mismanaged low thyroid, meaning they're not taking enough of a thyroid product, they will generally have a hard time sleeping. And the sleep will not be restful sleep, and they'll wake up a lot, or they'll be very light sleepers. And I know for myself, if I don't take my thyroid support, either because I forget or, go on a trip and forgot it or something like that, it doesn't happen overnight, but within a few days, my sleep is noticeably not as good. And it's just a big factor. And a lot of people don't think of thyroid for sleep. They think of it for more like metabolism and hair loss and stuff like that, but it's a key factor of not sleeping, and I see it a lot with women. Hyperthyroidism can be a reason for not sleeping too, for the opposite way. Hyperthyroidism is kind of like hyperadrenalism. It's like everything's on edge, it's hyper, it's overactive, and this can definitely affect sleep. And then Hashimoto's is an inflammatory thyroid with generally low thyroid symptoms. With Hashimoto's, we'll get into solutions, but the third bullet point says, in that case, you need to identify and avoid inflammatory causes for Hashimoto's, because Hashimoto's can be like a fire that needs to be put out. It's definitely an inflammatory reaction by the thyroid, and there's not a great medical solution for it. Some of my favorite remedies for Hashimoto's is ginger to reduce the inflammation, also adaptogens like ginseng, and then I like the ALCAT blood allergy test to identify the inflammatory foods and spices. Because let's say you have an intolerance to wheat, and you eat bread or wheat every night with dinner, then you're basically creating this inflammatory condition with your thyroid that's going to affect your sleep, because anything that's causing the inflammation of Hashimoto's is triggering all the symptoms related to Hashimoto's, which is basically all the thyroid symptoms. For thyroid support of low thyroid, it says you can try thyroid glandulars, iodine, tyrosine, herbal thyroid formulas. And then for hyperthyroidism, I like American ginseng for regulation and calming of hyperthyroid. Some of the same things that work for overactive adrenals also works for overactive thyroid, as they kind of run together, and they also affect each other. So thyroid and adrenals, big players with sleep. My third underlying reason for poor sleep is low serotonin levels. And low serotonin is a big factor, and it's I think commonly misunderstood, because a lot of people will take melatonin. It's a very common thing for people to try melatonin for sleep, But melatonin is the end of the equation for serotonin. The first component of melatonin is tryptophan, and tryptophan is not sold by itself in the U.S. Then we'll get to solutions, but you basically would use 5-HTP, which is 5-hydroxytryptophan. You see, tryptophan converts to serotonin, which is for mood and happiness, and then to melatonin. The calcium is needed for the conversion of tryptophan to melatonin to serotonin. So if someone, that actually says wrong, that should be tryptophan to serotonin to melatonin. But my point is, if you take melatonin, you're missing most of the equation. So calcium is necessary for good sleep, which we'll see in a minute with minerals. But you want that whole process because this has to do with mood and depression. It has to do with good quality and sound sleep, staying asleep. Calcium is for calming, and so is magnesium, which you'll see in a minute under nutrition. If you have low serotonin, the symptoms can include hard to go to sleep and stay asleep, both, irritability, emotions that lack rationality, occasionally experiencing unexplained tears, noise that bothers you more than it used to, you flare up at others more easily than before, you experience unprovoked anger, depression, more susceptible to pain or lower pain threshold, and you prefer to be left alone. So I just want you to read those for a minute and see how many of those that you might have. Okay, sorry. So if you look at that list and you have, a number of those, and if you're not sleeping, either staying asleep or going to sleep, then you might have a need to take serotonin. And sometimes melatonin will work for a while, but then it won't work long term, and that's because you need all of what tryptophan has to offer. Natural sources of tryptophan include milk, turkey, cheese, meat, ham, peanuts, and cottage cheese. Tryptophan, or 5-HTP, works with the catalyst calcium, magnesium, and chromium. So there is a conversion process for all this to take place, and there has to be adequate levels of calcium, magnesium, and chromium in the body for that to happen. I'll tell you a story right now about this. I had a person who was taking tryptophan, or 5-HTP, and first got some results, and they didn't really last long. And every time I did a new vision scan on her, it was showing low calcium. And I mean, like every time, no matter what. And it turned out that, and this is this is on the internet anyway, you can find this information, but this is when I realized that calcium was so important with 5-HTP. And what had happened was she had slowly became an insomniac over about a 5-year period of time, to where it just got worse and worse. And what I found out with her was that she had been taking large doses of magnesium for constipation regularly, like every night, and very high doses of magnesium without taking calcium and magnesium together, and that's a big no-no. If you take magnesium, like a Mag-Calm product, without taking calcium, you can actually disrupt your calcium levels and cause your own insomnia. So that's something to know. If you're taking any magnesium products, you should always take it with calcium, and I'll talk about the ratio here in a minute. Okay, so how do you supplement 5-HTP? It says the proper way is to take 50 to 100 milligrams before dinner and again before bed with a small amount of juice, like 2 to 4 ounces. And it doesn't say it here, but it's recommended that you do an unsweetened juice, like a grape juice where no sugar has been added. And you can increase up to 400 milligrams until you fall asleep fairly quickly and sleep through the night, possibly waking once to use the bathroom. You should be able to fall asleep quickly afterwards. If you feel hungover the next day, reduce your dose of 5-HTP, as it should not cause any hangover effects. Please note, a sleep-deprived person may be in a deep sleep at the time they're supposed to get up for a while, and this would be normal. What that means is, this is confusing to some people. There's a difference between having a hangover effect, like if you took too much Ambien or Tylenol PM and you just can't wake up, versus a person who's been sleep-deprived for 5 or 10 years. They finally get sleep because the serotonin levels have been fulfilled, and they don't want to get up because their body needs more rest. So you have to kind of determine if this is a hangover, where this is like in your system too long. 5-HTP should not cause that, but it could be for the first few weeks of taking 5-HTP that you just don't want to get out of bed because you're so sleep deprived that you just really need that extra time. So you just have to try to decide if it's a hangover effect or you just needed to sleep and you need to stay in bed longer. Okay, the next underlying cause is low minerals. I already mentioned low calcium, so let's start with that. If you have low calcium levels, the indications are being overweight, or hard to lose weight, lack of willpower, listlessness, lack of courage, nervous conditions, toe or leg cramps, sighing, like that kind of thing. You hear people do that a lot. Bad PMS symptoms, sour odor, sleeplessness, excess salivation, petty complaining, cyst anywhere in the body, difficulty thinking and concentrating, afternoon headaches, heart cramps and palpitations, particularly at night, muscle pain on the right side of the body. So specifically, a muscle or fibromyalgia type pain that's worse on the right side of the body can indicate calcium deficiency. Another mineral that can cause insomnia is iron. Iron is very commonly deficient in women more than men because of our menstrual cycles and bleeding through the month, each month, and then we become anemic. Especially if the person's not eating red meat, then very likely the female is going to have low iron. The symptoms of low iron are anemia, fatigue easily, crying more often for no real reason, dizziness, difficulty or labored breathing. This could be like walking or doing anything. Dull hearing, fault-finding tendency, being more critical, flat fingernails, a fissured tongue, which is like when people talk about bite marks on the tongue, mentally hard to please, pains in the head, heels, soles of the feet, and the fingertips or the shoulder joints, pain in any of those parts, poor equilibrium, sleepless at night and sleepy during the day, brain fog and poor short-term memory, cold hands and or feet. So when I'm reading these lists, if you have like half of these symptoms and this is you, then you should probably make a note or mental note that you might be low in calcium, low in iron. These indications are meant to guide you to where your issues may be that are also related to sleep. I'm not listing all minerals in this presentation, just the ones that have to do with sleep. Low magnesium symptoms are aching neck and shoulder muscles, high blood pressure, bone pain, migraine headaches, allergy to wool, a burning sensation of the mouth, tooth decay, bedwetting. This could be like for children, but also incontinence for adults. Feeling chilly after retiring, like feeling cold, like when they go to bed. General fear and grief. This is like not because of a specific situation, but generally feeling fearful or grief. Intestinal gas or inflammation, nervous heart palpitations, muscle jerk spasms, restless movements of the eyes and fingers, yellowish whites of the eyes, like instead of looking really white, they look kind of dull or dingy, sensitivity to noise, sleeping with the eyes half open, like someone would have to tell you that the eyelids are not shut all the way, teeth sensitive to cold water, a toothache when nothing is wrong, like the dentist, there's nothing wrong with the dentist, but there's still a toothache, tremors, twitching or winding motion of the body, carbohydrate digestion issues, hormone regulation, so hormone imbalances, acidity, insomnia, general apprehension, and muscle pain on the left side of the body. So if someone has the muscles hurt on the left side, that would be low magnesium. Okay, the next one that can be related to poor sleep is low selenium. This could cause premature aging, like wrinkles, gray hair, stuff like that. Infertility, a lowered IQ or feeling more like dull, not so sharp intellectually as before, heart disease, tumors of any kind, tissue elasticity problems, poor vision, not getting deep sleep. It's for a healthy liver and also can be used, or if there's an enlarged prostate, you can think of selenium. So if you have half of those symptoms, you can also think to try selenium for sleep. Low chromium is a big one. It is one of those that is, besides calcium and magnesium, a catalyst for the tryptophan conversion. Chromium is also related to anxiety, arteriosclerosis, dermatitis, stomach ulcers, fatigue, glucose intolerance or insulin resistance. It's used for weight loss and any blood sugar disorders. But we're going to get to blood sugar disorders and sleep specifically later on, so we'll talk about that. Usually on the minerals, I would recommend the dosage on whichever product you're buying or using, whatever the dosage is recommended. And minerals are generally best taken at night, before dinner, or before bed, or both. Like I take a CalMag before dinner, and I take a second dose before bed. It helps me get to sleep faster and helps me stay asleep. On mineral solutions, it says always take calcium and magnesium together in the correct ratio of 1 part calcium to 2 parts magnesium. Vitamin D deficiency can prevent calcium from being absorbed properly. So if you're taking calcium but you're still having calcium symptoms, think of trying vitamin D. And it says take the CalMag before dinner and bed for best results. Take selenium, chromium, and iron too if you're deficient, which you know either. The best ways to test minerals is generally a hair analysis, but you can, if you have a lot of the symptoms, you can just try it to see if it will help with sleep. Generally, minerals don't cost much as far as buying them as supplements. Try a mineral complex that includes all 5 minerals for best results. Note that iron is almost never included in mineral complexes unless noted on the bottle. So iron may be something you always have to buy separately. And it says take a bovine liver product for blood type O's and an herbal iron or blackstrap molasses for other blood types. Blood type O's do best with a beef liver iron type product. I recommend Apex Hemavite. And I use Dr. Christopher's herbal iron for all the blood types other than O. They work really well with the digestive process for those blood types and usually restore iron levels within like a month. But if you're still menstruating and not eating, especially if you're not eating red meat, iron support may be an ongoing thing. It's not usually like a one-time thing. It'll satisfy the levels pretty quickly in like a month, but you might need to take a maintenance dose, forever. I mean, I've taken iron for a long time, and if I don't take it, I definitely notice a difference. Other nutrition that can affect sleep, I've listed them specifically. So vitamin B1, if you're deficient in that B vitamin, it can cause sleep apnea. It can also cause eye problems, like vision problems, forgetfulness, nausea, constipation, loss of stomach acid, menstruation problems, weakness, lack of urination, sciatica, unexplained irritability, nerves on edge, loss of morale and sense of humor, like someone lost a sense of humor, that would be possibly B1, which is thiamine, slight paralysis, this would be like mobility issues, poor circulation affects carbohydrate digestion, and it also can cause low hydrochloric acid affecting digestion. And so B1 can be a lot of things. Biotin, the symptoms, if you have deficiency, would include anemia, like a type of B vitamin anemia, dry skin, hair loss, insomnia, poor appetite, nausea, mental depression, muscle problems, blood sugar imbalances, it regulates the blood sugar levels, and metabolism of fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. It helps utilize the other B complex vitamins. I actually had a kid case where he never was hungry, like ever. He was very small for his age, like in the low percentile, and he was an insomniac, and the parents were really affected because this kid was not sleeping, not going to sleep or staying asleep, and very restless. And anyway, his scan showed biotin deficiency, and within about a month of taking biotin, which is more commonly known for, skin and hair and nails, like people have bad fingernails or bad hair, biotin can be great. But anyway, the kid started taking the biotin, which are little bitty pills, almost like the size of a children's aspirin, and he got his appetite back, and he started sleeping. And so that was a kid case that was like a miracle to the family. Okay, valine is an amino acid, and deficiency can cause mental and emotional upsets, nervousness resulting in insomnia and hydrophobia or fear of water, cell deterioration, muscle metabolism issues, and tissue repair, and nitrogen balance. So if someone has nitrogen imbalance or oxygen, blood oxygen issues, they may be deficient in valine. But if the nervousness is resulting in insomnia, like they're fretting and worrying constantly about something that is like busy brain or OCD and they can't get off of it, then definitely I would try valine. Some of my tips for solving the nutrition is, if you're going to supplement with B vitamins, I would definitely choose a food grade B complex, and I would choose a complex before supplementing the individual B vitamins. And I put that I like Innate brand and Solanova. The problem with most Bs that I've seen, like the cheap ones especially from like Costco or in like One A Day, they're actually not food-based. They're a chemical B, which is really not a B. It's something the body can't do anything with. And sometimes people will say, oh, I take one a day, or I'm just picking on them, but they say they're taking something that's not food-based, and their symptoms aren't resolved, and so they'll say, well, I tried that and it didn't work. And then I've tried those people on a food-based product and it worked fine. And so a lot of the MLM companies use a cheap bee in their products and don't work. I've called companies where someone's called me and really pushed a MLM product, and they'll skirt around the issue, or they'll not know what the bee source is. But if there's not a food-based component, then it's not food-based. It's a chemically derived bee, which is not going to work with the human body. On amino acids, it's kind of the same story. You should always use an amino acid complex before supplementing individual amino acids. And the reason for this is that B vitamins and amino acids are synergistic and depend on each other for proper absorption. So like if someone's taking like B12 shots or liquid B12, or if they're taking just an amino acid for something, they should definitely take an aminogram with it, because like if you take B12 without taking B5 and B6, you can make all your Bs worse. So you might get some energy or whatever you're using B12 for, like for a while, but you're actually going to disrupt the other Bs in the body from whatever source you're getting them from. So you should always, B complex and aminos this isn't true of vitamins, and it's actually not true of essential fatty acids, but it is true of B complex and aminograms, or amino acids. Okay, the sixth cause of poor sleep can be arterial congestion. And this is very common. It has a lot of symptoms that you might resonate with. The symptoms for arterial congestion have nothing to do with high blood pressure necessarily, or the things that you might think of, but the symptoms include morning pain in the sternum, shoulder pain, this can be right or left side, tightness in the chest, it can include high blood pressure, asthma or breathing trouble, diabetes, hair in the ears, swollen ankles, and the swollen ankles may come and go, visible purple veins on the nose or ankles. Like if you look at your ankles right now on the outside part where your ankle bone is, if you see little purple veins there, that's a sign of arterial congestion. Tiredness after meals, a persistent feeling of weakness, like the lack of stamina, coldness, and this can be coldness of the hands or feet or arms and legs especially, tingling or burning in the toes or feet. That's a big symptom of very poor peripheral circulation issues, especially of the legs. Pain in the calves that improves after resting, sleeplessness, blurred or darkened vision, and this is usually worse in the morning after not sleeping, like if you didn't rest or you're tired, the vision seems worse. Noises in the head, which can include ringing, popping, buzzing, cracking, any of those kind of things. Dizziness, hearing loss that may come and go, right shoulder pain, pain or numbness down the left arm, sliding or shuffling footsteps, which usually means someone might trip more often, like over things low to the surface of the, like a sidewalk. A crease in the earlobe or nose that looks kind of like a wrinkle, or that looks like a fold, or a wrinkle in the ear. Any trouble with the lymph, liver, gallbladder, kidneys, or prostate can be arterial congestion. So if you have, more than 5 of those, you might consider that arterial congestion could be keeping you awake. It doesn't say it on here, but sleep apnea can be due to arterial congestion because lack of oxygen in the blood, and that also would be part of the cause of the arterial congestion. So some of the solutions for this category are Hannah Kroger's Circuflow with aloe vera protocol for arterial chelation. Any circulatory herbs such as turmeric, dandelion, cayenne pepper, chaparral, milk thistle, ginkgo biloba, or hawthorn berry are all great for arterial circulation and chelation. Exercise is always great for circulation because it forces oxygen into the blood. Hydration is super important. If someone is dehydrated, they're going to have thick, sticky blood, and it's going to cause long-term arterial issues. And then a balanced pH. You should eat more alkaline foods, which are fruits and vegetables. If you're acidic, you're going to have a tendency towards arterial congestion. And heart attacks and strokes is a huge cause of death for people in the United States, and especially women. And it's not really considered so much for women, but I think I've heard that it was, except for doctor intervention, it was the #1 cause of death for women. And so if you have any of those symptoms, then I would definitely look at these. And this is to me like a routine maintenance, like we would do an oil change in our car. We want to keep the arteries flowing. We want to keep the blood moving. We want to make it healthy, just like we want to keep, you know, the blood, I mean, the oil in our car cleaned and filtered every 5,000 miles or whatever. We want to do the same for our blood. It's very similar. The liver is like our blood, I mean, like our oil filter, and then our blood is like the oil in the car, so we want to do routine maintenance there. Underlying cause number 7 is parasites. Even though any parasite can affect sleep, there's 6 that are particularly bad for sleep, and it's hard to get a conclusive test with parasites. Almost no doctor is going to run a test that's worth a dang for testing parasites. Either you can go by symptoms, or you can go to like Rocky Mountain Labs to order your own parasite test kit. I usually use the New Vision scan to determine if I think it's a problem, but you can also go by some of these symptoms. So there are labs that will do parasite tests long distance, like with a stool sample. The problem with the parasite testing, whether it's through a doctor or through a mail order lab, is that they can only measure if the parasite's in that sample. So if you have spinal fluid parasites or a tapeworm in your brain, it's very likely not going to show up in a stool sample. And so it can give you a false negative and make you think you don't have parasites when in fact you do. Ann Louise Gittleman said that well, there's different statistics, but she said that 86% of Americans have a parasite problem. And if you look at that as an average, it's more likely in the southern states like Texas. And so it doesn't mean people in the north don't have parasites, because if she's saying 86% of all Americans, obviously that works out to be everywhere. But these are the main ones. So blood flukes can cause, these are little blood suckers. They come in through food, like from fish, and then they get into the bloodstream, and they have a little thing where they kind of, like a little sucker that attaches to the blood vessel wall, and it can cause blood clots, waking up in the night several times and sleepy during the day, weakness of the venous system, like more likely to cause a stroke, high blood pressure, stroke, arginine deficiency, and protein deficiency. And so this is definitely something to consider, especially if you are anemic also. Spirochetes the symptoms are, these are little spiral type microscopic parasites. They can cause tiredness, light or relapsing fever, infectious jaundice, muscle and joint pain, sores and ulcers, interrupted sleep patterns, heavy feeling in the legs, like people will say their legs just feel like a ton of weight, aching pains in the feet, and any Lyme type symptoms can be related, like chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia type stuff that is very commonly associated with Lyme. Tapeworms are one of the few parasites that don't need an intermediary host, which means you can pick them up from the sheets of the bed or from exposure on some surface. They can literally burrow into any part of the body and cause problems. Symptoms can include bloating, fluid retention or buildup during a full moon, high and low blood sugar, intestinal gas, jaundice, mineral imbalances, thyroid imbalance, dizziness, unclear thinking, hunger pains, poor digestion, allergies, sensitive to touch, pernicious anemia, which is iron deficiency, disturbed sleep, grinding your teeth, intestinal disturbances, and can migrate to muscles, heart, eyes, liver, spine, and brain. This one reminds me that if you have any symptoms that seem very cyclical, and you can map it to the full moon, you almost always are dealing with a parasite issue. A lot of times when people have a cyclical thing, like where their symptoms are like worse 1 week, a month in general, like they're not always bad, you can almost bet it's a parasite issue, because parasites become most active during a full moon, like right before the full moon and right after. And then the symptoms will kind of taper, maybe sleep will be better, the other symptoms will be better, but they're always going to be aggravated during that full moon cycle. So if your symptoms are cyclical and your sleep is cyclical, then you might definitely want to consider parasites as the problem. Pinworms are the famous thing that almost all kids deal with at some point. I call it itchy butt syndrome. It's irritation around the anus and itching, especially in children, digestive disturbances, irritability, insomnia, and nervousness. And if you have a child that wants to itch their bottom, and even also pets, you can almost bet it's a pinworm issue. And this activity is what usually keeps them from sleeping. Spinal fluid parasites can cause nervousness, trouble sleeping, and irritability. The problem with spinal fluid parasites is they show up almost never in tests, because you'd have to have like a spinal tap type of test to identify them. Whipworm is a specific worm that can affect sleep. It can also cause abdominal pain, diarrhea, gas, insomnia, nervousness, short-term memory loss, tenesmus, which is the feeling that you need to pass a stool even though your bowels are already empty. Like you just went to the bathroom, but you feel like you have to go again, but don't. That is usually whipworm. Weakness, weight loss without trying, allergies, migraines, sinus problems, and snoring. Heavy infestation shows as appendicitis, damage to the intestinal wall or leaky gut, prolapse, and edema of the rectum. And so none of these are good. We get parasites because of, walking outside barefoot, undercooked meat, unwashed veggies, eating in restaurants, just like, it's everywhere. So it's not that we can really avoid them completely. There's a lot of, we do a HANA class, it's called HANA 1, where we spend half a day on parasites and how you get them and how to get rid of them, and some crazy videos. And, most people think it's like this far-fetched thing that they could have a parasite infestation when it's very, very common. So some of the solutions, I'm putting some here, and I say some because there's more than one way to deal with parasites. So I put, depends on the parasite, but the general remedies are for whipworm. You can do a Sina homeopathic, that's the name of the remedy, Sina, wormwood, or the whipworm vibropathic. The remedies on here that are like says vibropathic or specific are Hannah Kroger's remedies, so you could get them from me or you could get them from Hannah's Herb Shop in Boulder, Colorado. Spinal fluid parasites, I would use the protozoa kit, a Special X vibropathic, which is a homeopathic by Hannah Kroger, or Special XT, which does not taste too great, and the X40 kit. And these are a way to get rid of these spinal fluid parasites. Pinworms is the Sina homeopathic, again, garlic or wormwood. Wormwood is a type of herb that is called wormwood because it comes from that tree, and parasites don't like it. Certain parasites don't like it. Blood flukes, you can use the blood flukes vibropathic or to plasma oil, and you would put, it's one of Hannah Kroger remedies too, and you put it on the feet, and it drives the blood flukes out. Spirochetes would be SPK formula, also Hannah Kroger's remedy, protozoa kit, wormwood, and the Special X vibropathic. Tapeworms don't like black walnut, hull, cloves, garlic, and Hannah's remedy called Rascal, which is a combination remedy to deal with certain parasites. If you think you might have a parasite problem, if you were to just email me and say, hey, I want the remedies for whatever one is on here for you, then I can respond and let you know, what it is and mail it and all that. Usually parasites are 60-day cycles. You want enough remedy to take care of a full parasite cycle, which is the larva, the eggs, the full-grown worms. And also remember that thing that if all your symptoms are worse during the full moon, including grinding your teeth and not sleeping, then you should definitely focus on this part of this presentation. Nothing else except hormones possibly can affect something cyclical to the full moon. Okay, underlying cause number 8, Epstein-Barr virus. The symptoms of Epstein-Barr, sometimes people have had exposure to Epstein-Barr and they don't know it, but Epstein-Barr is like that thing when people say they got kind of sick that one time, like thought they had the flu, but they never really recovered. Or they got sick, but then they kept getting sick, like it kept coming and going, especially when they're stressed out. Symptoms of Epstein-Barr include chronic fatigue, memory loss, ongoing flu-like symptoms, chills, fever, sore throat, aches, muscular weakness, acid reflux, swollen lymph glands, tumors, and cysts. This virus is also known as chronic fatigue syndrome. It can be associated with arthritis, like rheumatoid arthritis, especially systemic lupus, multiple sclerosis, herpes, and mononucleosis. So Epstein-Barr can be under all these other conditions. It's like one of the underlying causes, basically, but definitely for insomnia and sleep issues, or that tiredness that just doesn't go away. The solutions for Epstein-Barr are Hannah's BE kit and X40 kits, 2 of each, followed by 2 bottles of olive leaf. Her other tips were to drink 1 quart of red raspberry tea daily. And red raspberry is an astringent. I don't know why it was good for Epstein-Barr, but it was definitely one of her recommendations. And then she recommended the cottage cheese or interferon recipe, which was to eat daily 1 pint of cottage cheese, full fat, with 5 tablespoons of either walnut, apricot, flax, or almond oil every day for 3 weeks. So if you don't like cottage cheese, this would be hard to get down, I think. It's the interferon that's made today is based on this recipe, but it's a chemical type of interferon. But this recipe is really good because of its fat content, and this works wonders, especially when people are really good fat deprived. You know, if they're EFA deficient or fat deprived because they're always on no fat or low fat, this recipe can work wonders. It might freak some people out, like that eat that much of oil and cottage cheese and full fat, but sometimes it's really necessary. That could just be like their breakfast or their lunch during that period of time. I've done this before myself when I had lupus, and it was really great for rebuilding. And I remember I added either chopped pecans or walnuts to it, which won't interfere with what it's doing, because I like something with a little crunch in it. Even with yogurt, I'll add crunch. So it's okay to add like nuts or something if you just want something in there besides the cottage cheese and oil. Okay, so then underlying cause number 9, I'm going to cover this one, then I'm going to pause for a minute just to see if you guys have any comments or questions. Underlying cause number 9 is busy brain. And busy brain it can just be obsessive compulsive thinking or fretting or worrying, and you can't turn your brain off. But generally, these are the underlying causes of busy brain below. The first one is MSG sensitivity or consumption, especially after lunchtime. And I see this a lot with kids where their snacks are like hot Cheetos or chips, like flavored chips, or you know, basically anything packaged and flavored is going to have MSG in it if it's bought at the regular grocery store. So a lot of nighttime snacks for kids or things that kids crave have MSG. Also in like the prepared things like, what's interesting is it used to be in mac and cheese, but now the labels are saying it's not in there anymore, but it's still in things that are like pre-prepared, like marinated fajitas you buy at the grocery store, or something that's in teriyaki, or taco seasoning mix, or sloppy joe stuff in a can that you mix for stuff with kids. All that is going to have MSG in it, and if they're getting that in their nightly dose, their meal, they're going to be wired. They're not going to be going to sleep. They're going to say they can't turn their brain off or they can't go to sleep, and I am telling you they can't. I'm personally very sensitive to MSG, and if I have like certain restaurants here in Houston have it, it's always in chicken tenders, it's always in ranch dressing, it's always in fajita marinade, and it's in a lot of other things. And I'll just tell you where, like one restaurant in Houston, Papacitos, I cannot eat their fajitas like after lunchtime. I mean, I don't want to have them anytime, but let's say I go to a party or something and they have that catered. I have actually had where I ate some, or ate a small amount thinking it'll be fine, and 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm wide awake laying in bed going, oh my God, that was a mistake. I don't even eat it at all anymore. I won't even actually go to Papacitos, but their food tastes yummy, but it's definitely not good if you're trying to sleep. So if you're having sleep issues, you want to definitely check those salad dressings and the packaged foods and all that. If you're making, you know, a steak on the grill from scratch and not putting seasoning on Sorry about that. The phone just went dead for no apparent reason. Just check in. Let me check in with Lynn. Lynn, can you hear me okay, or can you tell me what you heard me say last?
You were talking about the restaurant, is what I heard last, the Papacitos.
Okay, because it just went, you didn't hear me say anything about glutamine yet?
No.
Okay, because it just went dead on my end, but I don't know at what point it was having a problem. So I'll go back to glutamine. Thank you. Okay, so with the restaurants, they're just loaded with MSG and all that stuff. You know what? I better make sure. Yeah, it's being recorded. They're just loaded. The chicken tenders, the fried batter, the gravies, the soups, all that stuff. So in your brain, if there's glutamine deficiency, you're going to be most likely to have not just busy brain, but also anxiety, PTSD, panic disorders, and stuff like that. So the way the brain works is there's little Pac-Men that are like in the brain, which are amino acid receptor sites, and they want glutamine, they want phenylalanine, they want the tryptophan. And when they're deficient and MSG comes up to the brain, MSG has the same chemical structure, which is glutamate to glutamine, but it's a bad glutamine. It's like the not good version. And so when it fills that receptor site, because you're deficient in glutamine, it fills the neurotransmitter site, and then it just fires, that brain cell fires itself to death. It literally kills brain cells. It's linked to Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, ADHD, insomnia, and many, many other conditions. If I had a family member with dementia, Alzheimer's, or Parkinson's, the recommendation is no MSG whatsoever, never, not breakfast, lunch, or dinner. But if I had a kid that was dealing with ADHD and at night insomnia, and I've had plenty of these cases where, I've had more than one child that eats a bag of hot Cheetos before bed and can't sleep, and they're up till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning on their phone, and then they, like playing games, and then they can't get up in the morning, and they tell me and their parent that they just can't go to sleep. So that's the things to watch for with MSG. Also, under busy brain, it could be possible that there's some central nervous system disorders, like the person is stuck in sympathetic dominance, which is fight or flight or survival mode. And this could be because they're under a stressful situation. To a kid, a stressful situation could be dealing with a step-parent or taking a test at school or something like that. Adults, we all know what a stressful situation can be. And so we still have to look at it as like calming the nervous system, which would be the same products actually as the thyroid and adrenals, like your calming herbs we've already talked about, and good sleep habits, which we'll get to at the end of the presentation. And then your solution is on this category is also to avoid MSG and aspartame completely, to take GABA, which is a form of glutamine, 500 milligrams at least 15 minutes before meals or snacks that have MSG. And the only reason I put that in there, because it really is best to avoid MSG and aspartame completely, but sometimes it's hard when you have like a business dinner to go to, or you have some situation like a wedding or something where you're going to eat the food, and if it's a restaurant type meal, it's going to have MSG in it. So in those cases, I do use 5-8 GABA, because once those receptor sites in the brain are satisfied, it's less likely that the MSG is going to have the same effect. And this category, it doesn't say it right here yet, but aspartame is in this category too, which is in diet sodas, diet drinks. A lot of diet products like Crystal Light has it has aspartame in it. And if aspartame is a problem, people are doing Crystal Light in the afternoon or at night, it can be the reason they're not sleeping. So you definitely want to avoid that. Okay, so I'm going to check questions before I go any further. Jenny's asking, could you add peaches or pineapple to cottage cheese for interferon recipe? And that is a yes, and I did that. I also added, I like pineapple and nuts in the cottage cheese recipe, and that's fine. And then Guli's question is about brewer's yeast for all the B vitamins, and that is a good source of B vitamins. I do like brewer's yeast, and I think it's kind of tasty. Most people that have never tried it think of it more, it's not like bread yeast, it's a different thing, but in a flaky, powdery thing, it tastes to me like something yummy that you can add a little salty and something you can definitely add to soups and stews and spaghetti sauce and all that real easily. It actually tastes like if you just had that in water, it would taste like a broth kind of. So it's a nice flavor enhancer, but a good one compared to MSG. Okay, so we'll keep going. If you have any questions, just go ahead and post them. Okay, so the next category, the cause number 10 for poor sleep, is heavy metals. And there's really two that can affect sleep more than anything else, and they're mercury and lead. And most of the people who have heavy metal toxicity are going to be mercury and lead. Not that you couldn't have other ones like copper, aluminum, but these two really affect sleep. So mercury toxicity or residue can cause neurological, behavioral, or emotional disturbances, depression, anxiety, hyperactivity, tremors, palpitations, loss of coordination, excessive salivation in the mouth, like people who have a lot of spit, metal taste in the mouth, eczema, allergies, especially to wheat, sore gums that bleed easily, loose teeth, constriction of bronchi and or lungs, skin disorders, blistering, and generally involved with learning disorders such as autism and ADHD. So if someone is having, especially when you see neurological, behavioral, emotional disturbances, this anxiety, hyperactivity, this is very common with ADHD kids, especially the ones bouncing off the walls, but it can affect sleep as well. And it's in dental fillings and in vaccines and other stuff. Lead, the symptoms are lack of willpower, hyperactivity, and exhaustion, which seem contradictory, but it's almost like hyperactivity and then it leads to exhaustion. Behavioral problems, suicidal tendencies, allergies, legs that ache, especially in children. They'll say their legs hurt or their bones hurt, severe fatigue, irritability, abdominal pain, personality changes, central nervous system disorders, difficulty concentrating, anemia, headaches, women that become tired in the morning, bitchy men, brain dysfunction, general weakness, mental retardation, and calcium deficiency, because lead displaces calcium because it's the same molecule size, kind of like MSG and glutamine. So there's some very specific remedies, and this is a limited list based on Hannah Kroger's work of remedies for mercury, so it depends. This you might need a little guidance or help with, but these are the names. I'm not going to read them all, but there's, the first one is for mercury in the tailbone, and I don't know if you would know that without having some kind of testing done. There's the second one is for mercury affecting the nerves. The Oramet is an antidote for mercury in general. The fourth one is when mercury is settled in the muscles, including the heart or scar tissue. Then there's mercury in the throat or tonsils. This is usually coming from the teeth. Then mercury in dental fillings. And then the last one is mercury that the residue is stored in the kidneys. So you might need some kind of additional help there on picking the best remedy for you. On the lead solutions, it's similar. There's a coxyletum, which is for lead that's stored in the tailbone. Metal X is a general metal toxicity herbal chelation product. And then Plum Balm is well known for lead toxicity and residue is a general remedy. But one way to determine heavy metals for sure is hair analysis. If you do a hair analysis and send it into the lab, it'll come back and tell you if you have higher than acceptable levels of multiple metals, but it includes lead and mercury, and would also check your mineral levels as well. Okay, so cause number 11 is the home environment, like, pets in the bed moving around, scratching, making noise, barking, the partner snoring, sleeping with the TV or music on. I'll come back to that one in a minute. Your mattress, looking at the iPhone or iPad or other portable devices before bed. There's been studies done that show that blue light from LED screens disrupt sleep patterns. I went into this in more detail in the children's webinar. And then watching the news, like Weather Channel before bed, like watching bad stuff on TV, worrying about a hurricane coming, stuff like that, that just doesn't really help sleep. And then like arguing, fighting, stress in the household. Obviously these don't have a magic pill for them. The one thing I want to cover is I read a study that said that iPhones and iPads and other lit up screen type devices can disrupt biorhythms for at least 2 hours after looking at it, even just to check a text or email or whatever. It's the screen that illuminates, which is the problem, not which app you're in. And so I would put that phone away a few hours before you go to bed, because just looking at it for just a few seconds can disrupt sleep for up to 2 hours. And then what kids do is they'll get on the iPhone or iPad because they can't go to sleep because of, let's say, those hot Cheetos, and then they can't go to sleep now for a new reason, which is the blue light from the LED screens. I usually tell parents to try to, keep those electronic devices away from the kids at night. Sleeping with the TV or music on, I know that many people do that, and they say it's the only way to fall asleep, but it is like a really bad habit long term, because what it does is it disrupts REM sleep. And people will, you know how, like, just watching regular TV, the volume changes, commercials are louder, there'll be like explosions or noise or booms or fighting or guns or whatever. All of this is bad for trying to get good quality sleep, because any variations in noise, or even with music on, I've had people tell me that a song will come on and it's a song that, let's say, they really like, or it means something to them, they'll wake up. I mean, there's a subconscious part of you listening to the TV and the music on, which is keeping you out of REM sleep. And if you're using the TV or music to go to sleep, I would go back through this list to see what the real problem is, because this tends to happen more with people that are have more ADD or ADHD tendencies, because some stimulation actually helps calm the brain, which is how ADD drugs work, but it still means that the real reason has not been identified yet. The next problem is stimulants, caffeine, tobacco, and sugar specifically, but really any stimulants. Other stimulants can include things like pain relievers, like Midol has caffeine in it, diet products, can have ephedra. So there's a lot of things that are stimulants, like 5-hour or 12-hour energy drinks or whatever those are. Definitely your Red Bulls and over-caffeinated products, but any caffeine, some people are more susceptible to caffeine than others. Some people can't have any, like none all day long, and some people can't, they should just avoid it after 2 p.m. And so if, especially with children, they seem more susceptible to the stimulants, but they should not have any caffeine whatsoever and no sugar if they're having problems sleeping. So you can start kind of going through the list and removing the different things until there is a good sleep pattern, and especially after 2 p.m., but some people can't have it all day long. Cause number 13 is sensitivity to electronics or electricity stuff. And so I'm affected by this one too. I see this more with kinesthetic people than auditory or visual, but if your bed is, the position is near like an outside transformer, a breaker box, an AC unit that's kicking off and on, you might have to change bedrooms or sleep in another part of the house, because if you're a kinesthetic person or sensitive to electronics, this is going to disrupt your sleep pattern forever, and there's no pill that can fix this. If your bed is on the other side of a wall that has a high-def TV or any of the above, again, it may be you need to be in a new bedroom or a different wall at least. Electronics near the bed, such as cell phones, charging, iPads, computers, is just always a bad idea. It disrupts sleep patterns, it disrupts biorhythms, and it can cause long-term damage. There's been studies that show cell phones and things can cause tumors and cancer near the site where they are all the time, like next to the ear or next to, the genital area, like, genital cancers, because of kids texting all the time. And these are exploding right now. And then any electronics in the bedroom. I mean, maybe an alarm clock, but your router and your Wi-Fi and all that should not be in the bedroom. It should be a pretty sterile environment as far as electronics go. Okay, the next one is something that a lot of people may not think about, and that's blood sugar disorders. Blood sugar disorders definitely can cause disruption of sleep. And there's 3 main categories here: hypoglycemia, diabetes, and insulin resistance. So hypoglycemia is low blood sugar, tendency toward low blood sugar. There's a second part of hypoglycemia that's reactive hypoglycemia, and that's like getting hypoglycemia after consuming sugar or simple carbohydrates. And then there's diabetes, which is high glucose or high A1C, and this is, most people know what that is. And then insulin resistance is a different condition that's usually linked to metabolic syndrome, where the body is like mishandling insulin, and it's a different condition, but it falls into the same category having to do with sleep. So with hypoglycemia, the solutions are, now, I guess let me go back for a minute, one more thing, because a lot of people really don't understand hypoglycemia. Hypoglycemia is where people will tend to crash or become very cranky or irritable or bitchy if they don't eat often enough, or they have a hard time focusing, or they'll get a headache, or their vision will become off. But hypoglycemia is also like when people can't stay asleep because their blood sugar goes too low and they wake up with a blood sugar issue. And this is very common. And especially for people who don't know they have hypoglycemia and they're trying to do the right thing by eating less meat at night and they're eating too early at night. This is a bad combination for hypoglycemics. And I fell into this too. I don't have hypoglycemia anymore, but if you're hypoglycemic and you eat dinner at, let's say, 5 or 6, and you're not eating meat, and it's mostly like a vegetarian type dinner, your biggest meal is at lunch, which most people say is healthy. This is not healthy for hypoglycemics, because what happens is if you eat dinner at 6 p.m. and then you think you're going to go till 7 or 8 the next morning without food, you have another thing coming, and there's no way you're going to stay asleep, because your body cannot go that long without protein, and it can't go that long without food, and it can become worse and worse if you try to resist and not treat it properly. So if you have hypoglycemia, the solutions are to reduce carbohydrates in general, eat a protein snack before bed, such as a hard-boiled egg, lunch meat without MSG or nitrates, nuts, almond butter, leftover meat like from dinner, tuna, a protein bar, or something like that. If you still wake up during the night, increase the amount of protein before bed, or try having a high-protein snack, and you should be able to go back to sleep if it's low blood sugar waking you up. And this is a great test. If you fall asleep fine, but wake up like at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and if eating something helps you go back to sleep, you probably are an undiagnosed hypoglycemic. And your solution is to start having more protein at dinner, less carbs, a protein snack before bed, even if it's just one boiled egg. And if you do wake up in the middle of the night, instead of just laying there suffering and can't go to sleep, get up and have like another boiled egg or 2 pieces of lunch meat or something like that. You don't have to have a whole meal, but have something so that your blood sugar can remain stable. And over time, if you reduce those simple carbohydrates and follow these instructions, your hypoglycemia will help resolve itself, and also with the last tip, which is chromium. If you're diabetic or have insulin resistance, you should already know you should eliminate simple carbohydrates completely. Complex carbohydrates are okay, but just not all the time. Increase your good fats and proteins because they stay with you longer, and vegetables, and limit fruit and fruit juice. Simple carbohydrates include all white flour products such as bread, crackers, cereal, pizza, cookies, tortillas, pancakes, all that stuff. Avoid sugar as much as possible and eat a protein snack before bed. This will not only help you maintain being level, but if you do a really good job at eliminating the simple carbohydrates and sugars, you can also reverse your diabetes. Gabriel Cousens has a great book called How to Cure Diabetes in 30 Days. And it's basically based on eliminating all the stuff that you shouldn't be eating anyway, and juicing and doing stuff like that. Back when I was like a kid, my grandfather had diabetes, and he was an insulin-dependent diabetic, and it was controlled by good diet advice, like not more than a half a cup of mashed potatoes. Like he can have a simple carbohydrate like once a day and not more than half a cup. Well, today doctors don't even tell you that. They're prescribing metformin, they're giving insulin and other glucophage and other drugs, and they're not telling people anymore what to avoid. It's almost like, oh, don't worry about your diet, just take these drugs. And that's really, really bad, because diabetes and complications of diabetes can cause many, many health issues, including amputations and death. And so it's something to definitely take seriously, but it's also in our sleep category. And then for both low and high blood sugar, chromium can be a great cheap solution taken before meals and especially before dinner and before bed to help balance blood sugar and to stay asleep. And so, oh, sorry, hold on one second. So just one chromium, like 4 times a day, can make a big difference in balancing blood sugar and staying asleep. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is having to do with the meridian clock in traditional Chinese medicine. And this is a chart of the clock, but we're going to talk about the times specifically that have to do with sleeping, which is basically, let's say, 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. And so that's affecting triple burner, gallbladder, liver, lung, and large intestine. And so when you're looking at this group, ways that this might make sense to you is like if you're always waking up at 3 a.m. or you're always waking up at 2 a.m. Like you don't wake up really any other time, but when you wake up at 2 a.m. you can't really go back to sleep, or you always wake up coughing at 4 a.m. That would definitely be a lung indicator. Or you're always waking up at midnight even though you just went to sleep at like 10:30. So this can be helpful for that when you're always waking up at this 2-hour windows of time and it's not really getting resolved. So the first one, this is cause number 15, traditional Chinese medicine meridians. So the first one is the 9 to 11 p.m. This is called the triple warmer time, and it's associated with how your thyroid and adrenals are doing. So if you have a hard time going to sleep between 9 and 11, again, it could be that adrenal dysregulation or low thyroid. This part of the period of time has to do with some emotions that's listed as well, but this period of time controls metabolism, regulates temperature. It's about the period of time you should be relaxing and chilling. It can be related to the emotions of hopelessness, confusion, or paranoia. And so, you know, this 9 to 11 is not the time to work on your taxes or try to deal with an issue or, you know, call your friend back who's having an emotional meltdown. This should be the period of time that you're winding down and should be asleep and sound asleep by 11 p.m. If you're not, then you're missing the boat with the thyroid and adrenals because they're not going to be restored completely. You don't have to be asleep by 9 p.m., but by 11 p.m. is like super important. Okay, the 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. is the gallbladder time, and this is for sleeping and regenerating, but the emotions related are bitterness, resentment, and if there's some bilious condition, which has to do with bad digestion, hold on one second. Stomach pains, constipation, and excessive flatulence or passing gas, but biliousness is just a general condition of feeling kind of yucky, you know, feeling the stomach is not feeling great. It's like feeling bad after eating fatty meals and stuff like that. But if you're waking up between that 11 p.m. to 1 a.m., and let's say you had that ribeye and baked potato for dinner, then you can think of it's a gallbladder issue. The 1 to 3 a.m. is the liver time, and this is really when you should be in the deep rest, the REM sleep, and the dreaming state. The liver emotions are anger, frustration, and rage. And so if you are waking up between 1 to 3 a.m., it could be a sign of liver toxicity. It could be stuff in the liver like that's residue that needs to be worked out, and it could be the emotions of anger, frustration, and rage. The next period of time is 3 a.m. to 5 a.m., and this is the lung meridian time. This is like when people are kind of starting to wake up a little bit. They're not in REM sleep anymore. They're gentle breathing. This period of time is also related to grief and sadness. It says the toxic waste from your lungs becomes loosened between 3 to 5, and when you awaken, this is why you cough sometimes. Your lungs are trying to expel the loosened waste. If you're coughing in the morning, this indicates that your diet and lifestyle needs tweaking. Pay attention to how you feel during this time, as it's a great indicator if you have a problem in this area. So a lot of times if you do wake up coughing from 3 to 5 a.m., it's because the lungs are the most dominant organ of that period of time. And then the next one is 5 to 7 a.m. or the large intestine time. So this is the period of time that waking up, if you're in a natural cycle, defecating is having that first bowel movement, elimination. It's related to the feelings of guilt, feeling stuck, or defensiveness. So if you're waking up like right at 5 a.m. and can't go back to sleep, you should think of large intestines, colon cleanse, stuff like that. To get the day off to a good start, give yourself enough time early in the morning to honor the normal elimination function of the large intestine. The morning is the most important time to drink plenty of water and the worst time to have caffeine. Caffeine is a diuretic and takes water away from your colon to the kidneys and bladder for evacuation. But your body needs water in the morning to keep up its repair and maintenance of the large intestine and colon. Drinking plenty of water at this time keeps you from getting constipated, gaining weight, looking and feeling older, and improves your overall health. A good idea in this period of time, especially right before 7 a.m., is to drink a big glass of water before you do anything else, and also like the hot lemon water stuff. So if you, can drink a big glass of hot water, not microwave water, but just hot or warm water with fresh lemon, it's going to help that elimination process. And then, wait till after for the, if you're going to have the caffeine or something else. I want to make sure that you guys, we're still doing really great on time. We're going to be fine on time tonight. So if you have any questions about anything so far, be sure and use the little chat window. You can ask a question, or you can raise the hand next to, like, there should be a little icon there of raising your hand, and that will let me know that you want me to call on you to ask you about questions. So you can raise your hand, or you can type a question in the chat. Okay, so let me scroll back down. Okay, mental and emotional. So this can be a past situation that occurred during sleep hours that's become a track for you. And I have lots of stories. I'll tell a few on this category. This could be some emergency that happened during the night that has you stuck on this track of what that emergency was, some bad news, a phone call, police at the door, a medical emergency, a hurt child, or something weather-related. Like I've had people tell me they had fires, they've had their house flooded, and it's that feeling of, what happens, like in German New Medicine, is he says that when you get on a track like that, it's actually your body or your psyche trying to help you stay alive. It's actually a survival mechanism. So if you almost flooded, or you almost had a child die, or you had a miscarriage in the middle of the night, there's some natural process in the body that happens that like takes you out of REM sleep to keep you alive. It's meant to be a protective survival mechanism, but the problem is it's kind of a mixed signal, because most likely it's not going to happen the same thing again, but your body is doing that to prevent that. So I'm going to tell you a few stories on this that I think are super interesting. One of them is a client who came in for insomnia, and the first 2 times she basically said what everybody says. She said, she can't stay asleep. She falls asleep pretty quickly, can't stay asleep. And in fact, the first time she didn't say it was always at the same time, but basically I saw serotonin deficiency. I saw some of the physical things that I mentioned tonight, that we were working on. And then I think it was her 3rd appointment, and sleep was better, but it still wasn't great, especially at this one period of time. But the 3rd appointment, she said something very interesting. She said, I'm still afraid to go to sleep, and I still keep waking up every night at 3 a.m. And I was like, what'd you say? Like, you're afraid to go to sleep? Being afraid to go to sleep is different than not sleeping. And I said, why'd you say that? Like, she didn't say this the first 2 appointments, or I would have heard it. And she said, oh, I don't know. I don't know why I said afraid. And then I said, well, has something happened to you in the middle of the night that you think would affect your sleep? And she said no. And most of you on the call tonight know I used New Vision and did a scan on her, and everything related to the scan when I looked at psychology and emotions was related to sleep, had to do with pregnancy, 3rd trimester, the birthing process, and conception. I mean, all of it was pregnancy stuff. And I asked her, I said, did you have anything happen with a pregnancy or a miscarriage during the middle of the night? And she was like, yes. And I said, well, what happened? And she had 2 miscarriages, both around 3 a.m. One was a 1st trimester, but unfortunately the other one was like 3rd trimester. And then she had a third child that she went into early labor with, also at 3 a.m., and this child was born and everything was fine. And I was like, oh, well, don't you see that you had this first miscarriage at 3 a.m. This kind of set her up for not sleeping, because it's like if you'd been awake, maybe it could have been prevented or something. She had a second miscarriage and then an early birth. And so 3 different occasions she had significant events happen at 3 a.m. Now, every night for like 8 years since this child was born, she's waking up at 3 a.m. and did not know why and could not go back to sleep. So that's one example. Another example is a client told me that there was a fire, and this fire happened about 4 a.m. and they were in a building, like an apartment building or a multi-housing kind of building, and the fire didn't initiate in her unit, but it was like one of those situations where the fire was so bad out of control by the time it got to where she was that it was really scary. Like the firemen actually had to save her from the burning building. And she had a problem always waking up at 4 a.m. but never associated this fire in the middle of the night as being the trigger. And then the third example I can tell you is that a client had a family member that was a suicide, and the police were knocking at the door late at night, and every night about that time she could not sleep. She was unable to sleep because there was this always like, I have to, this, it's not a conscious thing, it's an unconscious thing of needing to stay awake because something could happen or something might be happening, or I need to make sure something, I have to be aware. So besides the meridian clock, if you're always waking up at a certain time of night, one other thing to consider is, did something happen to you at that time of night? Did you get bad news? Did you find out someone died? Did the police come to your door? Was someone in danger? Was someone in a car wreck? Something like that, because that might be where an emotional release technique or just the awareness is, that's what's waking you up, is your body is in a track and it needs to get out of that track. Number 17, the reason, urinary. This could be when you're getting up more than once per night to urinate. This could be incontinence, like in the bed or bedwetting, especially with children. So getting up once a night to urinate is not really uncommon. Getting up more than once to urinate can be a problem, because when you're waking up and then going back to sleep, it's disrupting REM sleep for one thing, but sometimes people don't go right back to sleep. Also, if their brain kind of takes over when they wake up, it could be more than one issue related. So it could be urinary with busy brain, something like that. But if you're in deep REM sleep, you might actually have to go to the bathroom, and that's when the incontinence or bedwetting may be happening, is that there could be a urinary issue, but someone's so sound asleep they're not getting up to go to the restroom. And so one thing is to reduce fluid intake after 4 to 6 p.m., depending on what time you go to bed. And then you can try kidney and bladder support herbs and possibly prostate support herbs. If someone has, like, I had a client today who had a very large fibroid that she said was larger than her uterus, which is a very big fibroid, and it was pressing on her bladder. So there could be other things causing the urinary things, especially a dropsy or dropped organ pressing on the bladder, some kind of growth or fibroid or cyst that could be doing that. So there could be more than one cause. So this is a very limited list here, but then I would definitely focus on getting the urinary issue resolved, because it can be a big disruptor of sleep, but you might need to spend a little bit more time on what the underlying cause is here. Number 19 is hormone imbalance. I did one whole workshop like this that's called What Makes Your Hormones Hum, and it's on my YouTube channel if you want to go back and watch it. But the main 3 hormone imbalances that can cause insomnia are progesterone deficiency, which can also cause anxiety, feeling on edge, or insomnia. There's a much longer list on that other webinar. Progesterone is a buffer, and so whenever someone has anxiety or they're sensitive to caffeine or they're sensitive to thyroid and adrenal products, a lot of times they're progesterone deficient, and progesterone acts like a buffer, so it kind of takes the edge off of those other, like someone can be progesterone and thyroid deficient, but if they don't take the progesterone with the thyroid will make them feel that same way, kind of anxious and edgy and like they had too much caffeine. Estrogen deficiency can cause night sweats and hot flashes, which can definitely disrupt sleep, and difficulty falling asleep. And so that might be something that needs to be resolved too. It's nothing like having a night sweat and waking up in a bed of water and you got to change the sheets and all that. That's not going to help sleep. And then estrogen dominance can cause sleep disturbances, both falling asleep and staying asleep. And so I'd definitely, if you think this might be a problem, especially age-related, like women over 45, men too, but men are less likely to have these symptoms due to hormone imbalance, then I would do the hormone saliva testing to just see what your hormones are doing, or go back to that past webinar and look at the hormone symptom checklist to see where you might be falling and something that you can do to balance those out. Sleep routines are important in establishing good sleep habits. Most people have heard this before but don't realize how important it is. It's super important to go to bed about the same time every night and get up every day about the same time, even on the weekends. If someone were to, stay up half the night on a weekend because they can, then the next day isn't normal, and then it just kind of dominoes. Sleep in a dark room without lights on. It's okay to have a night light or a small light like that, but definitely you want a dark room. If there's bright lights outside or some other kind of light coming from somewhere, like street lights, you might even want those dark out curtains, that are the ones that keep that light out of like more than a regular curtain would. No music, TV, or electronics. We covered that. Take supplements before dinner to give them enough time to get in your system by bedtime. And I would personally, if you were going to just try one thing besides the little changes in habits, I would try 200 milligrams of 5-HTP and 2 calcium magnesium tablets, and take a second dose before bed if needed. The reason I like them before dinner instead of right before bed is if you pop those in your mouth and you're literally crawling into bed, they don't have enough time to break down and get in your system to help you go to sleep. They might help you stay asleep. So I do recommend that you try taking them before dinner instead of right before bed so that you have a fighting chance of getting to sleep, especially if that part is your problem. If you do the 200 milligrams of 5-HTP and 2 calcium CalMag tablets before bed and you sleep great, then don't do the second dose before bed. But if it's better but not resolved, then I would go up to 400 milligrams of 5-HTP and up to 4 CalMag tablets as like a first approach. Like if I was just going to do one thing, that's what I would do, because that solves so many issues for so many people. Also, try the protein snack before bed, like a boiled egg or a few nuts or 2 pieces of lunch meat. If a blood sugar imbalance is suspected, that will also help you get through the night. I know sometimes, like if I ate a light meal at night, like not enough food, I might lay in bed and just lay there, and then I know, oh, okay, I need to eat something, and if I do, then I usually go right to sleep. It's not like I have busy brain or anything, it's just like I can't go to sleep. Don't watch the news or violent shows on TV before bed. Try meditation or deep breathing exercises to help relax the mind and body. Avoid your cell phone, iPads, and computer screens and electronic books for at least 1 hour before bed, preferably 2. If you wake up during the night, don't get out of bed to do things. This will make the sleep pattern worse. And people tell me all the time they can't sleep, so they get up and do emails or do whatever. Well, then your brain is totally active, and it makes the cycle worse. Avoid sleeping pills and sedatives, as they can be addictive and do not address the underlying issues. Actually, what I've heard too is that most don't put you in REM sleep. They just kind of conk you out. If you're not in REM sleep, you're not restoring the adrenals. You're not getting the restorative sleep. And people can definitely have a hangover effect from sleeping pills and sedatives. And so people can still, like let's say they're taking Ambien for quite a long time or Tylenol PM or something like that, they can still have adrenal issues even though they say they're in bed sleeping for 8 hours a night. Exercise at least 30 minutes per day, but not after dinner, because that will get you too wound up. This can include walking, swimming, jogging, weights, yoga, Zumba. Just walking in the neighborhood is going to help you sleep, because if you've ever exercised, generally you sleep better because it takes something out of you that kind of takes the edge off and helps you calm down. Also, it's a good stress reliever. also forces oxygen into your bloodstream, which helps with the circulation. Don't drink water and other beverages after dinner. Don't drink caffeinated beverages after 2 p.m. Caffeine can affect some people longer and should not be consumed at all. Take a warm bath or shower or Epsom salt bath after dinner to relax. I just want to say one thing about this one. This is generally a good idea, especially the Epsom salt bath. But if a shower wakes you up, then I don't recommend you do it at night. Some people, like, a shower invigorates them or wakes them up. It's how they wake up in the morning. Then that probably would not be a good idea at night. Don't consume any products that contain MSG after lunchtime. Best not to consume them at all, because MSG can have an effect on the brain and kill brain cells for 8 to 12 hours. Use calming herbs such as valerian, kava, lemon balm, hops, chamomile, or any other nervine herb after 6 p.m. to start relaxing, and then again before bed. I didn't finish that sentence, but to go to sleep. I really like valerian a lot. Valerian is probably the most common thing that's taken to help quiet the mind and calm down. This is really good too for busy brain. If you have busy brain and can't shut the brain off, I would try a combination of GABA and valerian. Those two together really work great for the mind chatter. And then this is a little bit repetitive, but specifically if you can't fall asleep, okay? So there's can't fall asleep and can't stay asleep. So if you can't fall asleep, I would recommend the 200 milligrams of 5-HTP before dinner and 200 milligrams before bed, best if taken with a small amount of juice, like a Dixie cup worth. Take 2 CalMag before dinner and 2 before bed. Again, avoid MSG completely, and don't take magnesium by itself because of the depleting calcium. So if you're going to take any magnesium product for any reason, make sure you take a CalMag combo or take a calcium supplement with your magnesium product. Avoid the handheld electronics for at least 2 hours before bed because they will keep you from falling asleep. The calming herbs, again, the GABA. So this is my go-to list for people who cannot fall asleep. If you do these things, you should be able to fall asleep, especially if you may get all a ritual. It may seem like a lot to do, but you can wean off of some of this as your habits get better. Like, as you avoid MSG more, you'll need less GABA. As some other things get in balance, you know, valerian will just be more as needed. You might start with the 400 milligrams of 5-HTP and 4 CalMags per night, and then as you get that sleep restored, then you can start like backing off and taking less until you see a change in sleep. But maybe it only takes you 200 milligrams of 5-HTP. Everyone's different, but generally, instead of wasting time, I go right to 200 and 200 because it almost always works for getting better sleep. If you can't stay asleep, then do the 200 milligrams of 5-HTP before dinner and before bed, again with a small amount of juice, same thing. If you take melatonin and can't stay asleep, try the sustained release or dual release, because what happens then is part of it releases immediately and the other half releases slowly, like time release, so that you can stay asleep. Eat a protein snack before bed so your blood sugar doesn't wake you up. Take chromium before dinner and before bed to also help balance blood sugar. Avoid all MSG, aspartame, and stimulants. Sometimes people can have MSG and fall asleep because they're just so exhausted, but then they can't stay asleep and that busy brain is going. Again, take the calming herbs before bed. If you wake up, record what time and keep a log. A lot of times this will indicate to you, especially going back to this presentation, what is going on. Like if you're always waking up between 1 and 3, you can go back and go, oh, okay, that's probably my liver. If you wake up, do not get up and do things, stay in bed and do deep breathing and try to clear the mind. Plus, it should just help with all these other things and these recommendations. You should see a big difference faster. If your issues are something else that we've covered tonight, like parasites or metals or something like that, then these should still help you, but they're probably not going to completely resolve the problem. So those could still be issues that need to be resolved. So even though this almost always works and helps, if there is like a traumatic event that happened during the middle of the night or mercury in your body or something like that, then that might be where you know, you have some other testing to determine, like hair analysis, or you have an appointment with me, or you have some kind of method of determining what else might be an imbalance. Okay, so that is all I have, and we still have about 20 minutes left. So if there's any questions or comments or you know, anything that you want to add. And if you had sleep issues or your sleep is better now and you've done something that I didn't mention, that would be great to share as well since we have a little bit of time. So I'll wait to see if there's any comments or questions. And we can also end early if there's not. But this, like I said, will be recorded and uploaded to YouTube if you want to go back through the indicators. And hopefully this helps with your sleep tonight. If you have some of these things handy, you can try. If you don't have all of them, but you have valerian, try it. Maybe you haven't tried it in a long time. I find that any little things or changes can also help, especially during specifically stressful times. Okay, I'm going to sit here and see what you guys have to say. And I'm going to take my calcium magnesium right now, too. Also, if you have an observation from tonight and want to share it, that would be great also. Let me go back to the screen. Oh. Okay, so Lynn is, what's a good CalMag source? There's lots of, CalMag is pretty easy to find good ones. I like, there's two by Bronson that I use a lot. One's a calcium complex with magnesium, so it's several forms of calcium with magnesium. There's also one that's like a calcium, magnesium, boron, and zinc. So some of the calcium magnesium products will have, well, they always will come in the right ratio, and then they'll have some added nutrients that are good for calcium and magnesium absorption. So I personally take the CalMag with boron and zinc. That's the one I've been using myself. There's also some single things like a magnesium complex for like a MagCalm, and then you can buy calcium separately. So it depends on what you're taking it for. A lot of times people use magnesium for elimination, and then they would need to buy that calcium separately. And some people believe that these complexes, like a magnesium complex and a calcium complex, are good because people will respond to different types of calcium or different types of magnesium. But calcium and magnesium are pretty easy to find as a good source, unlike the Bs, where I'm more picky on Bs. And they're generally kind of chalky, and sometimes they come in like big horse tablets. So I don't like swallowing them because they are even big tablets for me, and I usually bite them in a few pieces and then wash them down. And they don't really have a bad taste at all. They don't really taste like anything, maybe chalky. And so I just bite them and then swallow. But I would say that I haven't heard of a bad source of a CalMag. There might be, but I think they're pretty standardized. Lynn's suggestion is a great one. Lavender oil in the bath or on the pillow is also helpful. That's a great idea. I didn't even mention essential oils, but there's several essential oils, lavender being the most famous, that you can, you know, put on your bedding or a spray. I've even put a drop or two on between my nose and upper lip, like a drop there where you're just basically smelling it. And this brings up another tip that I forgot about, but in Ayurvedic medicine, one of the solutions is to put sesame oil on your feet, and that's very calming. And I've done that also with good success. So you just take like the sesame oil like you buy in the grocery store and rub some into your feet, and then I would put socks on just because it's oily, and that can be really good and calming and beneficial based on Ayurvedic medicine. And so there's other essential oils and tips like that that are a great reminder. And hi, Michael. I'm glad you were on tonight. And Jenny, thank you. I'm glad that you guys were on. There is some powdered forms of, I've seen more powdered forms of magnesium than calcium, but there are powdered forms of getting them both together. But definitely magnesium is more common in powder form. Suggestions for foods that have some of these things in them. So this is Michael's question. So I didn't, you know, on the tryptophan, it's the turkey and cheese and meat and stuff like that that was in that. I'll go back up to that. I'll try to give you some solutions, because brewer's yeast was a great recommendation of a food source for the B vitamins. So let me scroll down because I'll give you some ideas. For the thyroid and adrenals, ginseng, even though that's not really a food, but iodine can be helpful, like an iodine-rich food like a seaweed or a kelp. In this category, it would be milk, turkey, cheese, meat, ham, peanuts, and cottage cheese. And also really red meat, buffalo, any kind of meat, because meat and proteins are high in amino acids. And so that's a good source for your amino acids. In the B vitamins, which can be helpful for sleep and also stress, it would be the brewer's yeast is probably the best source I know of, or nutritional yeast, they also call it. And then minerals are high in fruits and vegetables, especially like green leafy stuff. Iron is high in also red meat, blackstrap molasses. Michael, I think you have the Help One Another book. For anyone on the call tonight that has Help One Another, you can go to any of these sections of like magnesium, selenium, chromium, and in the book there's foods listed that would be also good sources for those particular nutrients. And then let's see what else. Yeah, that's about it on the nutrition. So really just eating a good balanced diet of the meats and vegetables and maybe some nuts and things like that is definitely going to help in variety, because the brewer's yeast is just a great thing to add because it's so rich in the B vitamins, and it tastes good. I mean, the problem is sometimes products like that don't taste good, and I think nutritional yeast tastes pretty good. Okay, somebody has their hand up. Let's see. Hey, Jenny, you got your hand up? Are you there?
I'm sorry. Gwen, I had to laugh because it was actually my cat. My cat was rubbing against the screen and hit the hands up button, so I apologize for that.
Is her cat, maybe your cat has something to say about sleep.
Oh, I'm sure she has something to say about sleep. We never let her get enough of it. You know, that's what it is.
Or maybe she's affecting your sleep. Well, that's okay. I just wanted to see if you had something to add. So
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Okay, Michael's asking, is diatomaceous earth effective for parasites in your experience? It is effective. What I've heard about diatomaceous earth is there's some aspect of it that gets in parasites and it tears their insides up or something. That's what I've heard. But the only problem with diatomaceous earth is it's something that can't get to all parasites. So diatomaceous earth can be good for the intestinal worms. It can be good for places that are part of the digestive system, like stomach, small intestines, and colon. But it doesn't really help the parasites that are in spinal fluid, brain, and other parts of the body where it's not going to be able to get there because it's kind of limited to the digestive process. So that's one thing I'd say about that is if it's a certain parasite, diatomaceous may not work. But some other things that weren't on the list that may work for that is like more of a shotgun approach, is like MMS, which is like the miracle mineral solution, food-grade hydrogen peroxide, a molecular silver, which is like a homeopathic silver. What else is really good? Really, those three are good because, like, the MMS and the hydrogen peroxide are considered gaseous, and they are not limited to the gut, and they can get to other parts of the body and penetrate. And the molecular silver or the homeopathic remedies for parasites like Sina also are not limited to the digestive process. And so one other thing with the homeopathics, besides homeopathics, is Hannah Kroger had a lot of tips for parasites that had to do with putting certain oils like wintergreen oil and things like that on the bottom of the feet, and this would drive parasites out. So you could do this on pets as well, like down the spine or in certain parts of their back, like where they're not really going to get to it. Well, the oils wouldn't hurt them, but it will drive parasites out as a natural approach. And garlic, too. Garlic can be very effective against parasites. So how would you take the hydrogen peroxide protocol? So there is a list, and I don't know if I have it handy, but you basically, it's important to take food grade. I get it from Eagle Enterprises in Whitney, Texas, but it's hard to find, actually. It's hard to find food grade even in health food stores or drug stores. A lot of people say to go there and find it. I never found it there, but Eagle Enterprises sells it, and I'm sure different places sell it in different locations. But you basically start, it's a 35% peroxide, so first thing you have to do is dilute it to 3% because it's very strong compared to the hydrogen peroxide in the brown bottle that you use in first aid applications. So it's very, very potent. And generally it's a schedule kind of like MMS where you start with 3 drops in a glass of water, and then you go to 4 drops, and then you go to 5 drops, and you work up to like 17 drops. And then you work back down like 16, 15, 14, 13, until you get back down to 3, and that kind of goes through the whole 60-day, well, kind of goes through the whole 60-day cycle, because then you stay at 3 drops as a maintenance dose. If someone has like a known yeast or fungus or candida problem, they recommend that you start at 1 drop and you go more slowly through the schedule, because peroxide is very effective against candida and fungus, but it can put someone in kind of a healing crisis. Generally, when I buy the hydrogen peroxide, it comes with like a little fold-over piece of paper that has instructions on using it to, clean vegetables, for toe fungus, for parasites, and for all different kinds of stuff. You can use it to rinse your fruit and vegetables with it. You can use it to rinse meat, to kill parasites in like fish and meat. It just has a ton of use, and one like quart bottle, retail is like $32, but that bottle will last quite a long time at 35% solution. I'll just, while I'm waiting to see if there's another question or comment, I'll try to find that schedule online real fast. I'm sure it's published. I just have to find a version of it. It's also used for, I saw, teeth whitening. Let me see if this is a general. Yeah, here's kind of what they send, like when you buy it. They're saying that it comes in a 35% solution. And so here's some of the things it's used for in the dishwasher, kitchen, leftover salad, sprouting seeds, vegetable soak, and then in the bathroom for athlete's foot, in the bathtub, a colonic, a douche, an enema for the face, a foot soak, mouth shower, teeth, whitening teeth, and spraying toilet paper, which I've never actually done. And then first aid uses on abrasions, cuts, open injuries, humidifiers and steamers, plants and flowers, insecticide spray, washing and laundry, and disinfecting water. So each one has slightly different instructions, and this is kind of similar to what they send out with this product that I use. One thing, though, if you wanted to know, I didn't see parasites on there, so I could, in my search, I could add looking for, because for parasites and fungus, it is actually a graded schedule, so you start slow and you build. Let's see if this one has an instruction. Yeah, this is it, the drop method. So this one is saying use full strength and purified or distilled water and start with 3 drops added to 6 ounces of water. Take 3 times a day and increase the doses by 1 drop for the following 7 days, followed by an increase of 2 drops on day 9. So 12 drops 3 times a day until a maximum of 25 drops has been reached, typically day 16, and that's kind of what I've done. And then you start working backward and stay on a maintenance dose until you get through the cycle. But anyway, this is, if you want to look at this website, this is mybestRemedies.com, and it's peroxide treatment. But that would be a typical protocol for parasites and for candida. Okay, now someone else has their hand raised. And this could be Jenny or her cat. We don't know. Jenny, I'm unmuting you again, but it could be your cat. Are you there?
The cat. I'm so sorry. Still the cat. Still the cat.
It's okay. I just wanted to be sure. Okay, the cat definitely has something to say. Okay, so hopefully that answers the question, but it's a great shotgun approach for any kind of disinfectant needs, whether it's in the kitchen, the bathroom, or something like that. I mean, there's lots of stories about parasites in meat, parasites in fish, parasites in sushi, and so you can use this kind of wash or rinse solution to get rid of the parasites, you know, before you cook or use whatever you've bought at the store. Okay, we'll see. We have a few minutes left if there's any additional questions. MMS has a similar schedule, and I think the peroxide is actually easier. Some people don't like the taste of the higher amount of drops of the peroxide and water. You kind of build up to it. I think it's you know, palatable. But if you don't like it, then add more water. You don't have to do just 6 ounces of water. You could just do a bigger amount of water with the peroxide in there, which is what I did. Some people don't like MMS for the same reason, because it smells like you're drinking chlorine. All right, well, you guys, I'm glad you were able to attend tonight. This will be uploaded if you want to go back through or recommend the presentation to anybody else. I know 2 hours on a weeknight is a big commitment, so I appreciate you being on. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.